everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I wanted to do two things. One, I wanted to talk about my limited play experience and just kind of give my overall thoughts. I'm not going to go card for card, but just kind of talk about it, as well as give you like my most powerful cards, I think, going into the set both from a power perspective, but also from like a usability perspective, like a consistency perspective in the outsider set. And I'll go class by class. So if you like this type of content, at the end of the video, leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not, it's totally fine. I appreciate you even clicking on the video and stopping by. Join the Discord down below if you want to. We're approaching now 430 subscribers, 430 members of the Discord. Super active community, really positive. And if you're a long-standing member and you want another way to support the channel, I'd really appreciate you checking out the Patreon. There's some cool benefits in there for subscribers, such as seeing my videos a day early and doing some other stuff. So getting right into it, for limited play experience, I want to talk first about like what my thoughts were. So I had two pre-releases, but obviously both sealed. We didn't do any top 8 cut to draft or anything like that. It was just straight sealed gameplay. I ended up going 4-0 the first sealed event, and I went 3-1 my second sealed event, losing a game that was just totally stupid for me to lose. I lost off an attack reaction where I should have blocked because I was in a good spot. Anyway, regardless, it was super fun. Just the competitive side of me was upset I lost. But overall, went 7-1 in 2 pre-releases. Ended up winning the good old Cold Foil Uziri, and overall had a ton of fun with the event, as you can see right here, with the event. And the events as a whole. One pre-release was 32 players, and then the other pre-release was a 16-player pool. The 32 is the one I went 4-0 in. But yeah, it was really good. Quick thoughts on sealed. One, sealed in this set is really fun. To me, it has a lot of remnants of Arcane Rising in the way of there is viability with really any route you take. And there's also kind of like the power level is the same. There's no like super overpowered class. Every class has some viability. Yes, Ninja, in my opinion, is a little bit harder to build. However, it's not like Tails where like you can just force Briar and do really well. And it's not like Uprising where you could just force Fi and do really well. So it really is. Yes, I think Assassin's the most consistent class in Limited. However, I do think that there's definitely a couple ways you can go about doing it. I went with Uziri both times. The first time I went with Uziri all 4 games, and then the second pre-release I went with Arachne for my first 2 and a Uziri for my last 2. But I stayed with Assassin. So a couple thoughts. One, Ninja is very hard to build. A Ninja is extremely difficult. You have to get the right starter pool. I think in draft it'll be a little bit better because you can kind of sculpt your pool a little bit more, especially if you have signs of a lot of people are going Assassin in your pool, which I think a lot of people will because it's going to be the easier one to build and be flexible in. So in draft, Ninja might be more applicable, but in sealed, you really have to have the right pool. It's really hard. Kind of going into my second point, which is Assassin is the most consistent for sure, for 2 reasons. 3 reasons really. One is card pool, obviously. So if you look at it, if you think about it, you have Assassin in the middle, you have Ninja on the left, you have Ranger on the right? Like that's your 3 pools of normal cards. In between them are Assassin Ninja and Assassin Ranger. So if Assassin's in the middle, they have access to Assassin cards, they have access to their left, which is Assassin Ninja hybrid cards, and they have access to their right, which is Assassin Ranger hybrid cards. So they naturally have the widest pool and the most flexible pool. On top of that, a lot of the generics in the set really adhere to what Assassin's trying to do, whether it's with Uziri, with cards like Wreck Havoc, Deft Touch, even the hybrid cards like Deft Touch and Virulent Touch, the generic cards like Wreck Havoc, generic cards like Humble, generic cards like even generic cards like Ravenous Rabble Red, which if you put it in with Uziri ability, comes in for 0 for 5 go again because if it doesn't have its own play effect. With Arachne, a lot of the like feisty locals and a lot of the Ravenous Rabble really even do well in that archetype because you can leave with a stealth card with an on hit like Infect and then come in with like a Ravenous Rabble or come in with like a good second attack. So a lot of the card pool really favors Assassin in my opinion. So overall I think Assassin's the most consistent class. Ninja is really hard to build and sealed specifically. Ranger is good if you get the right pool. I noticed a lot of people were playing like Riptide not necessarily Riptide control, but Riptide with like a big card pool and being able to like fatigue your opponents. However, it's also susceptible to fatigue. But it was really cool in a limited format seeing like Rangers like pitch stack. You don't normally see that in limited. Normally it was just like aggro go Burr with Fi and Briar. So to be able to see people actually like taking note of like what they're blocking with and what they're pitching and how they're stacking their second cycle. Most games go to second cycle. Out of the 7-8 games I played, it went to fatigue, I'd say 3 times, and it went to second cycle every single game. There was not one game that was decided in like 3 or 4 turns, which cannot be said the same for like the last 2 limited formats. So overall, really good. I'm really happy with it. There wasn't anything that felt broken or overpowered. I definitely think Uziri is the most consistent, but I don't think she is overpowered in the sense of like must pick unless you just have a crack pool. I think everything was kind of pickable. In the first pre-release specifically, we had 32 players. In Dallas, we were a pretty talented pool. Like there were some really talented players like that were playing like to play in that pre-release, and our top 4 going into the last round was me, Al Nuziri, there was an Arachne, and there was 2 Azaleas. So like it definitely can lend itself to have other pools. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts. Assassin's most consistent. Ninja's really hard to build. Ranger is possible if you have the right build, but overall Assassin's most consistent. But the experience feels really good for Sealed. I'm really excited to see how it goes for draft. Be drafting with a couple buddies and just see how that experience is. So let me know what your thoughts were on your pre-releases. We're kind of getting the top cards here, and I'll put a timestamp on this. But first, we're going to get into Assassin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the top 3 cards, in my opinion, both from a power perspective and from a usability perspective for each class, including generics and dual class. So for Assassin, number 1 for me, not the number 1, but one of the top 3 is Nerve Scalpel. It's once per turn action, pay 2, go again with Piercing 1, same as Spider's Bite. Tax for 1, it says when it hits a hero, the next time they defend with 1 more reaction cards this turn, those cards have -1 while defending. This is going to be really good because if you're going to be main Uziri, especially Uziri, even Arachne too, but especially Uziri, they're going to run reactions against you. They're going to run D-reacts. They're going to run things of that nature to try to prohibit you from making the most of your ability. Yes, you might see stuff like Reinforce the Line or like other weird stuff, but for the most part, they're going to be running a lot of reactions against you. And I think a lot of decks in this meta in general are playing for really good value. So Nerve Scalpel is going to help combat that a little bit. Also, Nerve Scalpel for anyone, I'm not going to go over the whole interaction, but basically there's something you can do with Flick Knives where if you attack with Nerve Scalpel first, or you only attack with Nerve Scalpel, sorry, you attack with, I don't know, any attack, you attack react with Uziri's ability, or you attack react with Flick Knives in the attack reaction step, and they haven't declared a defense reaction yet, then that defense reaction that's going to come in or that hasn't resolved yet is going to be able to get -1. So like if they defense react and you respond before the defense reaction resolves with Nerve Scalpel through Flick Knives, or like target Nerve Scalpel through Flick Knives, it'll reduce the block of that defense reaction by 1. And that's the only knife that it works with. It doesn't work that way with like Spider's Bite or Below Cast because those blocks have been declared. However, the defense reaction, because reactions are done at instant speed and the reaction step, if they declare a defense reaction and then before that defense reaction resolves or is considered played, you respond with Flick Knives, you can able to like nullify their defense reaction from fully covering something up, which can help you win the game. So it's really interesting reaction. If you go into the comprehensive rules or the rules update on the Fab TCG website, they explain it a lot more elegantly than I just did, but it's a really, really cool interaction. So I think Nerve Scalpel is going to be really important. Next one is Below Cast. This is going to be really good because a lot of, at least in Arachne's sense, especially a lot of decks were trying to value by blocking with their non-attack actions and be able to, outvalue there but still keep threats in hand because their non-attack actions want to get -1 by Spider's Bite. Well, this is going to prohibit that. This is going to be really good against a lot of decks that want to kind of just cheat in their non-attack actions in defense and be able to still keep their threats. If you run one of these with one of Spider's Bite and you're able to bite both times with both your daggers, you're able to basically essentially give all their cards -1 block with the exception of reaction cards. So really good for that as well. And then finally, Shakedown. It's hard putting a specialization in this because it's like kind of like a no shit this is going to be in the top, but It's too good not to put in the top 3. It's a use area specialization. If you play or activate an attack reaction, this Chain Link Shakedown has, when this hits a hero, choose red, yellow, or blue. They reveal their hand, banish a card of the chosen color. So this sees itself on Uziri's attack reaction. So if you attack react this in with Uziri's ability, it basically is going to have the on-hit effect. So really, really powerful card. It basically can time walk somebody depending on how their deck is formulated, especially if it's like Guardian, you just choose blue every time. If it's Ninja, you choose red because you can get rid of a good attack, so on and so forth. So that's the Assassin cards. I think the top 3 there are going to be looking at. There's other ones as well, but those are the top 3. I think that from a usability standpoint are going to be the most consistently good. Then we have the hybrid cards. So number 1 is Codex, not number 1, but one of the top 3 is Codex of Bloodlot. Each hero puts a card from their hand face down to their arsenal. Create a Ponder token under your control and create a Bloodrot Pox token under each opponent's control. I think this can be really good for like a control Arachne list. You basically rip a card out of their hand when you're trying to attack, which can help you get on hit. Give them a Bloodrot Pox, which now they have one less card to help pay for that because they just put a card down in their arsenal. And there's no discard effect with this, unlike Frailty. So basically, if you play this on like a 4-card hand with Arachne, when you gain tempo, let's say it's a 4-card hand versus their 4-card hand, you play Codex of Bloodrot, ripping a card from their hand, essentially putting it into arsenal, and then you pitch the Spider's Bite, giving their card one less block, and then off Tunic you play like Surgical Extraction with like a cut to the chase. Yes, that's very like situational, but it gives you an idea of like now they only have 3 cards to block that Surgical out, and they might have -1 block. So it has some cool interaction, I think, with like Fatigue List. It is only a 2 block, which kind of sucks for that same reason. However, I think that this is just like a consistently good card for specifically Arachne. I don't see Rangers using this as much. They might find some use for it, but I don't think they will. I don't see how you would. You'd have to really like tune your list for it. But for Assassin, Control Assassin or Fatigue Assassin specifically, I think it's really good. Then we have Codex of Frailty. The Codex is just kind of take the cake with the dual class stuff. This one is just bonkers in Azalea. Each hero puts an attack action card from their graveyard face down to their arsenal. Each hero that does this discards a card, create a Ponder token under your control, and a Frailty token under each opponent's control. So this is good both in Assassin and in Ranger. I'll talk about Ranger first. Basically, you can play this. Basically, this card acts as 2 things. One, it helps your non-arrow turns. Like if you run 24 arrows and you run 3 Knock the Death Whistles as Azalea, and then you run 3 Codex of Frailties, you essentially have 30 arrows because these are going to help you go find an arrow. Specifically with Azalea, what's really nice off this card is if you have this in like, let's say 2 pumps, you're able to play with Tunic counter. You're able to, which is pretty often, you're able to play out both pumps. Let's say it's a Lace with Frailty and a Lace with Bloodrot. So your next hero is going to get +6. So you have no cards left in hand. You play the Codex of Frailty, go get a arrow from your graveyard. Let's just say it's Remorseless. You put it down in the bottom of your arsenal. You don't discard a card because you have no cards to discard. You use your Tunic resource to play Remorseless out for 11. Also, this allows you to put it face down your arsenal, so it reloads essentially, and you're able to use Skullbone Crosswrap just to see if you can find an arrow on top. So even though you put that Remorseless in your arsenal, if you Skullbone Crosswrap and you see a red in the ledger, all of a sudden you have an 11 dominate red in the ledger. So really, really good for that. In Assassin, it's really funny because it's like if you don't have a card in arsenal, let's say you just have a Leave No Witness in grave, you play out your hand to where you only have 1 left in hand. If you can with this Codex Frailty, you play it, go get Leave No Witness, put it in arsenal. They put an attack they want in arsenal, and then you play Leave No Witness threatening the arsenal that they just put in. So basically you're like saying, okay, you just went and got a card, but now I'm threatening to banish that card unless you block. So it's really funny. It kind of like pisses them off a little bit. I definitely run this in Arachne, maybe even use Eerie just to keep those threats going and keep consistent threats because, again, if you have 3 of these, like let's just say for Arachne, for example, your power cards are 3 Command and Conquers, 3 Leave No Witness, 3 Eradicates, and 3 Surgical Extractions. These 3 codexes basically give you 3 more of one of those power cards, which is really, really nice. So definitely one of the top dual class. And then finally Concealed Blade. This is good in Assassin and Ninja. Ninja specifically. For Ninja, they basically gave us a blue block 3 lunging press. And it has some applicability with getting daggers back if you absolutely need it. It can be used in Benji. It can be used in Katsu. This will be used in Ira. This is an automatic add at blue, in my opinion. It's just too good. And Assassin, it does the same thing. It's equally as good. It's a blue block 3 that helps you close out games with the +1 ability. So definitely one. I think this is honestly the best hybrid card from just like a consistency standpoint, because it's literally going to, in my opinion, be used in every single deck it can possibly be used in. It's used in Arachne. It's used in Uziri. It's used in Katsu, and it's used in Benji, and it's probably going to be used in Ira. So like, I don't see a place where it's not used, to be honest. Then we go into generics. First one is Premeditate. This one's crazy in any Ranger, but especially in Azalea. I mean, the artwork kind of lends to who it's meant for. The next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, create a Ponder token. The next attack action card you play from Arsenal this turn gains +3. Yes, it's a generic. You can definitely use it in other decks, but this is kind of meant for Ranger, where you're going to be attacking from Arsenal the most consistently. What this card allows you to do is like overextend. There's been turns where, like, let's just say you have a Lace with Blood Rot in hand, and you have a blue and an arrow. And you pitch your blue with Azalea, you load in your arrow, and you draw into this. So now in your hand, you have 2 resources floating with, let's say, a Remorseless and Arsenal, and you have this and a Lace with Blood Rot. Normally, if this was like a release attention, you might like play Release with Blood Rot and then Arsenal your release attention, because you don't want to like give up your Arsenal. But basically what this card allows you to do is it allows you to overextend. It allows you to play out both pumps, attack with a Remorseless for 11, and you're telling your opponent, if you don't block me, I'm going to get an Arsenal anyway. So it allows you to add 3 power onto a lot of arrows while still getting an Arsenal, especially when you combine this with like a double or triple pump turn, which with Azalea now is not hard at all. It allows you to basically overextend and push more damage while consistently keeping an Arsenal. So it's really good for that. I could see us also using Lexi as well. It'll be interesting to see what other decks use this. I don't know any other decks that would, because other decks don't care as much about the Arsenal as Ranger does. But overall, I think that that it's not, that it's going to be pretty useful. And then finally, for generic Vambrance of Determination, or second for generic Vambrance for Determination, I've only been able to test this card in Azalea, but I think this card's going to be really, really good against decks like Oldheim and against any decks that want to do prevention effects. This is just a great sideboard equipment to basically nullify like Crown of Seeds. It'll nullify other prevention effects, and it's just really good for combating fatigue decks, as well as helping you also be able to present more threats with some of your breakpoint attacks that mostly they could maybe prevent with like Crown of Seeds or something different. This allows you to basically combat that. When you're playing against Oldheim with Azalea, I can tell you right now, this card basically nullifies Crown of Seeds. It prevents you from being able to them from crowning consistently, because most time with Azalea, you have 1 resource floating, and it's just really easy to activate this and prevent them, because a lot of times Oldheim will use Crown to basically exact block your attack, and this prevents them from doing that. So it's really good. And then finally, at generic, I added in Wreck Havoc. I think this card's actually going to be really cool. I always have people on the channel saying, like, what can I replace Command and Conquer with? I don't know what to replace it with. And normally my answer is Erase Face, but now it might end up being Wreck Havoc. Wreck Havoc's basically like a poor man's Command and Conquer. Defense reactions can't be played on it. And when it hits a hero, you may turn a card in their arsenal face up, destroy a defense reaction in their arsenal. So if people are trying to do defense reactions against you as Uziri or even Arachne, and they likely do want to put these in arsenal, and it could be used for that. This even could be used in like Rhinar potentially as well, to help prevent some of the defense reactions they're trying to get down arsenal to get around Intimidate. It's really, really good for that. And at the very worst, they can't play defense reactions on this, and you're able to see what's in their arsenal to potentially see what they're trying to do next turn. So I think this card is actually going to be really, really good. I'm not saying it's like broken by any means or like a must-have in every deck, but it's definitely something that if you can't afford to play set Command and Conquers, you can play Wreck Havoc. And then finally, Ninja. Ninja is super one, or second to last Ninja. Bonds of Ancestry. This is the one where I can rank the cards. Bonds of Ancestry is the best card that Ninja has. This card allows Katsu to be a Yu-Gi-Oh combo deck. It basically allows Katsu to have a double trigger, a double tutor every time he sees this card. You're going to be going to get 2 different cards. And when you combine that with Mask of Momentum or Mask of Pouncey Links, you potentially can get 3 cards that turn. this card's nuts with what you can loop. If you want to check out my video where I did 33 damage for 0 resources over a 5-card hand, it had a lot to do with this card. So definitely the best card in my opinion from both a usability and power perspective combined. Ninja got hands down. Second one's Dishonor. From a power perspective, this is the most powerful card Ninja got technically. However, in my 60 plus games of testing with Katsu, I think I've gotten to get this hit 3 times, maybe twice, 2-3 times. If Bonds of Ancestry was last attack this combat chain, it gets +2. And if you have a Surging Strike, Descendant Gust Wave, and Bonds of Ancestry on the chain, this gains, when it hits, the opposing hero loses all abilities the rest of the game. Super powerful effect. It hitting is kind of a bonus. I've only hit with this 2 or 3 times. I would say that its power is really when they see that you banish this card and you're about to play it. It's like if you play Surging Strike, they let it hit. And let's say you have Descendant and Bonds in hand already, which isn't that hard to have, honestly, especially if you Arsenal one prior to, and you banish a 0 cost to go get Dishonor, they basically know they have to let some attacks hit so they can block Dishonor because it just helps you guarantee damage in other ways, and it's a super powerful card. And then finally, from more of a not so much a power perspective, but from a usability perspective, Spinning Wheel Kick, it's a 1-for-4 go again with combo. It's basically a searchable leg tap. You can search for it, play it for 1-for-4. If it's comboed off itself or comboed off Twin Twisters, it's now a 1-for-5. And if it's comboed off itself and you've played it, it's in its combo stage, it cycles back into your deck. So when you have cards like Visit the Floating Dojo, you have cards like this, you have cards like 100 Winds with Winds of Eternity, you have all these ways to recur threats back into your deck. It's really going to help Ninja be able to deal with fatigue and also just consistently be able to present damage. And then finally for a Ranger, number 1 is Crow's Nest. I know it's a specialization. Again, I don't like putting specializations in these lists, but this just changes. I mean, like I said, I said this in a previous video, they had to give Azalea an easily attainable way to put aim counters on arrows because of draft and because of sealed. Like, they can't make it like a majestic quiver because then there's no point in playing Azalea unless you pull that quiver because you can't give anything an aim counter. Not no point, but it really limits the point of playing Azalea. So they had to basically make it a token, but it's funny because this is a majestic power level quiver as a token because of just the circumstances and why it needed to be made. Really, really good. Kind of not too much to say about it. Just kind of, one of the better Ranger cards. The second one that's more applicable for everyone, I think every Ranger will be running this. Red Infected Shot, maybe even running yellow. Shoot, some Rangers might even run a playset of these. It's just so good. I mean, it's essentially like a 1-for-7 or 2-for-7, right, if you count the load. 2-for-7 at red, 2-for-6 at yellow, and 2-for-5 at blue. Just too good at every single color. Azalea, I'm running red and yellows of this. Its value is just too good in comparison to other arrows. It doesn't quite have like the crazy power that like Barbed Undertow has as an arrow, but as far as consistent value through every single Ranger, it's one of the best cards in the set. And then the lace pumps in general, but Lace with Inertia is really nice for specifically Azalea because Lexi doesn't run as much pumps, but for Ranger in general, like being able to have this with Seek and Destroy, you essentially have like 6 Seek and Destroys in the deck now, and it's going to prevent your opponent from archeling. The reason I say this is one of the more powerful cards in the set right now for Ranger is because of the meta it's going into. It's going into a lot of Icelander, it's going into a lot of Oldheim, and it's even going into decks like Bravo, decks like Lexi, that are going to be really popular even now, even Katsu. A lot of decks that either A, play off of their arsenal like Icelander and Oldheim, or B, really value their arsenal like Katsu, Lexi, things of that nature. So overall, I think, yes, this card, again, Barbed Undertow is not in my list, and it could be very easily. However, just from like I said, I made this list not just from a sheer power perspective, but from a usability perspective. I think this is going to be one of the top cards as well. So that's basically all my cards going back into it. But let me know what you think. This isn't meant to be like I'm 100% right. It's just my personal thoughts. And again, I tried to do both from a usability perspective and a power perspective for these cards. Yeah, if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If not me, it's totally fine. Go to our Fleshbug career, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing this game. And I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.